Today, we're exploring the EAC Duty Remission Scheme, a powerful but widely underutilized trade facility. It allows qualifying Ugandan manufacturers to import raw materials at reduced or zero duty rates, with significant implications for production costs and export competitiveness. Welcome to the Grant Thornton Podcast. I am Melissa Ngabire, your host for today. And joining me is Robert Byamukama, a tax manager here with over 11 years of experience in customs law and EAC trade policy and advising manufacturers and exporters on trade facilitation and tax compliance. Thank you so much for joining us today, Robert. You're welcome to the podcast. Let's get into it.
Thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure to be here on this podcast.
Before we get into the complexities, could you please tell our listeners and viewers what exactly duty remission is?
Duty remission is a trade facility or trade facilitation scheme that is available to manufacturers within Uganda that provides or that allows for them to have duty reduced or duty at no cost for raw materials that are being imported into the country that they're going to use for their manufacturing business or industry. And this cuts across different sectors. This scheme is provided for within the frameworks of the law. And this is the governing law for the EAC, for the East African Community. And this law is the East African Community Customs Management Act. So the Act provides for duty remission as a scheme that is available for manufacturers. And there are regulations that give the detail of how the whole scheme operates. And these are the duty remission regulations.
So how does this differ from duty drawback or exemption schemes?
Duty drawback and exemption are also trade facilitation measures in a way. The only difference is that for duty drawback, you are allowed to import goods raw materials that you're going to use for the manufacturing process, but you're going to pay duty at importation. Then after the manufacturing process and you're exporting these goods, you'll be able to reclaim or ask or request for a refund on the duty that you paid for those goods or raw materials at the time of importation. The difference between duty remission and duty drawback would be that for duty remission, you're actually either getting a reduced cost or a zero cost, and you're not paying duty at all for raw materials that you're going to use for the manufacturing process. While for duty drawback, you are paying the taxes and you are later on going to claim for your refund. Now for the exemption regime is provided for under Section 114 of the East African Community Customs Management Act, where it provides for general exemptions of goods that are going to be imported into a country and you're not going to pay any duty at all. And these are provided for in the 5th schedule of the Act. So the difference between the general exemption and the remission is that the remission, you're only restricting it to particular raw materials that are going to be used in the manufacturing process. Whereas the general exemption is for all categories of goods that are going to be imported that are being provided for in the Act. So irrespective of whether you're going to use them for manufacturing or not, there's still duty that is not going to be paid for. It's a full waiver, actually. The other difference is that it's a full waiver. You're not going to pay any duty at importation for the exemption, while for duty remission, you're paying a certain percentage. It could be 10 or it could be a reduced percentage.
Which entities are eligible to apply for duty remission?
The duty remission is, like I mentioned earlier, is available for people that are in the manufacturing industry. So if you're manufacturing goods that are going to be either consumed locally, because the regulations allow you to import for manufacturing of goods that are going to be consumed locally. And then if you're also into the export-oriented manufacturing, that you're importing raw materials and you're manufacturing goods that are going to be exported later on. So if you're in the manufacturing business, either it's for for home consumption, or it's for export. So those are the categories of persons that will be eligible to enjoy duty remission.
So let's say these people, they pass this criteria for this duty remission. What are the step-by-step application processes they can go, including the documents that would be required of them?
Thank you. Now, like I mentioned earlier, again, the regulations for duty remission provide for a step-by-step on what one needs to go through to be able to enjoy this benefit. So the first is to make an application to the Commissioner Custom, because he has the mandate, he has the authority to grant you to enjoy this privilege. So you make an application and then you attach documents that will be required of you. Some of these include the company details. You need to have a registered company, so you need to have a certificate of incorporation. You need to have a TIN. You need to have a TCC, a tax clearance certificate, and many other documents that the Commission may also request you to add on to what you have submitted. So after you have made that submission or request, the Commissioner will then forward your application to a committee. This committee is also composed under the regulations, and it comprises of different stakeholders that are given the mandate to vet your application and then be able to make a recommendation whether you would qualify or not. So this committee comprises of a member from Ministry of Finance, Customs, a representative from the manufacturing industry, and any other person that the Commissioner may wish for to be on that committee. And what happens is that they'll vet your application, make sure they go through the different criteria that is required of you. And if you then meet that criteria, then they'll make comments and remarks that they will share with the Commissioner Customs. So upon receiving those remarks, the Commissioner then forwards your application to the Council of Ministers. This is at the EAC Secretariat. So the Council of Ministers will then look into your application with the recommendations and comments from the Commissioner Customs, and then we'll go ahead and either grant you this request, or they also have the power to reject your application, of course, giving reasons why they are rejecting your application. Yeah.
Robert, you mentioned something interesting, that there's a criteria that is used by the committee. So what are these criteria that are used to reject or approve the people to go to the next steps? And do you know of any successful businesses that have made it through? And what are examples of some of those that made it through the committee's criteria?
Thank you. The committee, first of all, has the power within itself to determine the procedure or proceedings of how their sittings are going to be. So they have to agree amongst themselves how they're going to conduct their work. But some of the criteria that they will consider for one to be eligible to benefit from duty remission, they would look into issues of compliance. How is this taxpayer? Have they been compliant? Have they been able to pay all their taxes? Do they have any liabilities that are pending? If they have applied for duty remission before, have they been compliant? Have they fulfilled all the obligations that are requested or required of them? And then that is one of them. The other is your capacity, your production capacity. Because remember, this is a privilege that is going to be accorded to you, and we'll want to know, the committee would want to know, do you have the capacity to produce for the market that is going to enjoy this benefit? Because remember, you're going to have an advantage over other people, and they would not want to stifle consumption or give you this privilege and you're not able to produce for the market that is available. Then the other criteria, they would look into your capacity. That's your production capacity, or in terms of storage, and then your operations. What machinery have you put in place? Have you completed your structures? Do you have enough storage for your raw materials and the products that you're going to produce? And also, they would also look into the availability of that product on the local market. Because remember, we are trying to create an advantage for you, but is there anyone else that is having this raw material on the local market that you would rather support this person than you who is actually importing something from out? So that if there's anyone that is available, then you'd find a way of working together to be able to produce a product out of this raw material. So those are some of the considerations that the committee would look into, among many others.
All right. So once approved, how do the importers under this remission scheme handle customs clearance?
Customs clearance is a process. It starts right from importation, clearing through customs, and then you have to go through warehousing, and then manufacturing, and then export. So once you have been accorded this privilege, it starts from gazetting of the duty remission that has been granted to you. So once the ministers approve or the council approves the duty remission scheme for the manufacturer, they'll issue a gazette, which is a public notice showing the product you're bringing in, the quantities, and also for the period of time for which you're going to be able to enjoy this privilege. And also, they may include certain conditions for you to enjoy this privilege. So once you have been gazetted, what then happens is that customs will issue you a special procedure code. It's a code that allows you to make declarations in the system that is going to waive a certain percentage. If you've been granted duty remission, let's say of 10% or a certain percentage, a reduction of the taxes, or zero. So that if you're going to make a declaration to customs through a customs clearing agent, or you could even make the declaration yourself if you're a self-clearing company. So that code is going to allow you to make that declaration. And once you make that declaration, it will now go through the process of verification, and also a process of clearance through a DPC, which is a document processing center. And then you'll go ahead, once the goods are exited, you have them in your manufacturing facility or your factory, and then you're able to go ahead and start your production. So that is the part of at the importation. Now, the time of clearance of export, because remember we are talking about a benefit that is given to those that are in manufacturing that are either exporting or that are producing for home consumption. So there are two other processes. If you're exporting, then you have to go through again the export process. Make your declaration, have them verified, whatever product that you're manufacturing, and then once they're exited or they're being verified by customs, you can go ahead and export. So for home consumption, then again, it's another process that you're going to make a declaration to customs that you intend to have these goods sold on the local market through a clearing agent as well. You make a declaration on an IM4, and then you'll be assessed duty. Now, the duty that you're going to be assessed is that you would have paid 0%, and you would have paid a certain percentage, which was waived, and now you have to pay now the full duty of the goods that you're consuming or that are going to be sold on the local market. So then you'll pay the taxes. Once the taxes have been paid and you're exited through customs processes, then you can go ahead and sell on the local market. So those are the three processes: at the time of importation, the time of export, and then also the time if there are any goods that are being consumed on the local market.
So I'd like to go back to the approved applicants. I believe, like any other process, there are obligations and expectations. So what would you say are the key obligations for these approved applicants?
Some of the obligations, or the obligations that are provided for those that have been granted this privilege or to enjoy this duty remission scheme, trade facility. One of them is that you need to have proper bookkeeping. It's a requirement that you have been given this privilege, then now you need to know, or you need to have proper bookkeeping for accountability purposes. You are allowed to import goods that are duty-free at a certain reduced rate, and you're allowed to do manufacturing. But remember, you're only given certain quantities. You're restricted onto the quantities that you are allowed to import. So it's important that you have proper bookkeeping so that if at any one time there's an inspection or there's need to do an audit, you need to do or need to have a separate or need to have clearly defined books in regards to what you have imported that is under duty remission and what you have imported that exceeds or that is outside the duty remission. And if there are any local purchases, sometimes what you've imported may not be sufficient for you, but there are other people that are having this raw material and you are actually using it for manufacturing. So you need to distinguish what you've imported that is on duty remission, what you've imported that is outside the duty remission quantities, and then also what you have purchased on the local market. And then also transfers, because there are times when you run out of this product and another probably manufacturer that is enjoying this facility has a raw material that you may need for your manufacturing process, and then you are allowed to transfer. So you also need to have those books or records clearly defined. The other obligation is that you need to file quarterly returns. It's a requirement that is provided for in the duty remission regulations that you file quarterly returns of what you have imported, how are you using it, what are you left with, and then also if there's any waste that has been that is there, you also need to account for it. So these returns are quarterly, and you need to file these returns with customs. The other obligation under duty remission is being able to limit yourself within the quantities you've been given. There's a temptation usually by clients or by manufacturers to misuse this privilege. You've been given or accorded this opportunity to be able to import goods duty-free, but then there's a temptation that you could import goods that are exceeding the quantities. So one of the obligations is that only restrict yourself to what is in the quantities that have been provided to you.
So, Robert, what improvements do you think could be made to the duty remission scheme to make it more accessible and transparent for Ugandan businesses?
Some of the recommendations that I would make, one would be to digitalize the application system or application process. That currently you have to make or have a written or fill in a form and submit it. But if it is digitalized, you have an online application where it is easy for you to track your process. Go online, make an application, and then be able to see the steps through which your application is going through. So that will increase transparency and also to increase accessibility, that anyone can go online at any one time. You don't have to look for a physical form or have to write and submit a physical application. Then the other recommendation I would make would be the time period through which this whole process goes through. It should be something that is workable within considering the manufacturing business, that someone is able to make an application in time and also have a shorter time within which the application process goes through. Because like we said, it has to go through a committee and then has to go through the EAC. So the process should be streamlined and also should be shortened, probably say 7 or 8 days, through which one can make an application and go through. The other recommendation would be access to a database. Many people have enjoyed this benefit, much as there's a gazette notice that is out there for people to utilize, but then also the other consumers may not know different manufacturers that are enjoying this benefit, for them to be able either to transfer the goods or be able to have raw materials acquired from them. And then also for statistical purposes, that we need to have a database that is going to be able to be accessed by the public, to be able to have an analysis of how much of these raw materials are coming in. What do we need to improve as a country? Are these things we can make for ourselves? How do we support the local industry that is having something similar to what is being brought in? So also the database would be something that is very good. The other would be capacity building. Many manufacturers are not aware of this privilege or this scheme that is available to them. It's only for a few people that have taken an extra step or mile to be able to discover that this privilege that is available to them. So this podcast is something that is good for the manufacturers, but then also the authority should be, the customs authorities should be able to have more publicity about the duty remission scheme and the benefits thereof that are available to manufacturers. Those are some of the recommendations I would make. Or the other would be the appeal process. So much as there's an application process of how one should be able to benefit from this scheme, but once I've been rejected, what do I do? How do I go about this rejection? If I feel I'm dissatisfied with the criteria in which that was taken to be able to consider or reject my application, what appeal process do I need to go through? So that also needs to come out clearly within the regulations and also to the manufacturing sector.
So I believe many of our listeners are curious to know, why does this scheme matter, or how does it benefit Uganda as a whole, the Ugandan manufacturers and the importers as well?
With this scheme, the first benefit is that you're going to reduce on your production costs. If taxes are being taken away out of your production, that means it's going to help you with the pricing. You're going to have favorable competitive prices that are going to be able to, in return, increase on your production sales. And once the sales have increased, the other benefit is that the profitability you're going to get out of this is also going to be high. So the other advantage for the country is that we're going to be able to collect income tax on what has been sold or the sales. And then also the other benefit would be export competitiveness, that your cost of production has been reduced once taxes have been taken away or subsidized. So meaning in the market out there, your product is going to have a competitive price and you're going to have more exports. So you'll have more exports and you'll have more income coming into the country. And then the other is employment. These industries or manufacturing entities have been able to employ quite a number of people in our economy. As you may know, that we are suffering from unemployment, or there's a deficit, or there's a challenge with employment in our country. So with the manufacturing industry and with these benefits coming in, you're going to have more people being employed, because if you're having a reduced cost on your production, then you'll be able to pay salaries to people that you're going to employ in your industry. And in turn, it will go ahead now affect the GDP of the country. You're going to have more exports, you're going to have more income coming into the country, and you're going to be able to sustain yourself as a country. So those are some of the benefits that are with the duty remission scheme that are available for the manufacturers, but also as a country.
As we're coming to a close, are there any particular goods that usually qualify for this remission?
So the East African Community regulation, duty remission regulation, define what manufacturing is. And it comprises of anyone that is in the process of manufacturing, assembling, bending, blending, packaging. So it's quite a huge category of people that are within the definition. It's not only restricted to manufacturing, but also the packaging bit of it. So anyone that is in that process is eligible to have raw materials or semi-finished goods that are going to be used and will be eligible for duty remission.
Okay, Robert. So one final question for our viewers and listeners. If there's anything you'd like them to take away from this discussion, anything you'd want them to remember, what would that be? What I would want for the viewers to remember or recall, especially those that have been granted this remission or this privilege, one is to make an application early. If you haven't applied for duty remission, make your application early, because it's a process. So the earlier you make it, the better it is for you. The other is compliance. If you've been granted this privilege, make sure you file your returns, your quarterly returns, and file them in time. Then utilize the quantities that you've been given
and do not exceed them, because otherwise you'll be punishable. You'll be able to pay. You'll pay a penalty for going outside the limits that you've been granted. So those are the things I would want for manufacturers to recall: compliance, and also making sure that you do not fall on the wrong side of the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Robert. This has been an incredibly valuable discussion, and one I hope has given our viewers both the clarity and confidence to explore what this scheme could mean for their business. The key message here today is simple. The duty remission scheme is legitimate, government-backed, and it's designed to reduce your costs and strengthen your competitiveness. But it rewards those who engage with it correctly and penalizes those who don't. If you'd like to learn more, the URA website carries the full legislation and procedures manual, and professional advisory support is always recommended before you apply. Please feel free to share, follow, like to anyone that you believe will benefit from this information. Thank you for listening. Till next time.